Welcome back, Gundam guys and Gundam gals. PatrickGrade here from GGInfiniteNews.com. This time bringing you part 2 of the video review for the Master Grade Gundam AGE-1 Normal. So I've got all the parts and pieces put together here. Let's take a look at all the accessories, the weapons, and the parts of the mobile suit and see how the kit turned out. So here we go. Alright, so here's a look at the feet and legs. And as you can see, there's a lot of nice detail molded to the plastic, with these extra vents here along the edges of the lower and upper legs, as well as all the panel lining. So it's looking pretty nice. For articulation, you have a nice 180 bend there at the knee, and when you do so, you bring up this little plate on the front of the knee. It pops up in response to the knee being bent out like that, so that's pretty cool. The feet have a wide range of movement, backward and forward, side to side, and they can kind of float around there as well. Good ankles. The toes can bend upward and downward. And the foot armor here is free to move around as well, independent of the feet and ankles. So everything's looking pretty good. Now, of course, the sticker goes here on the knees to make it black. I know a lot of people have a big problem with that. And while I understand the point, I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's not a normal sticker. It stays on really well and it looks pretty good, I think. But if you don't like the sticker, the piece that it sticks onto is completely separate of everything else. So it would be real simple just to paint it with a spray can real quick, or even to hand brush it if you wanted to. So I don't think it's a big deal. It looks good to me, and once you get on there right, I don't think it's going to come off anytime soon. So it works pretty well in my opinion. One thing I do have a problem with though, a minor gripe, is there's a polycap being used here for the hip joint. It's not the typical ABS plastic that I'm used to in Master Grades. And it works fine for now, but I just worry that it's going to get stretch out over time and not be quite as effective. So that's one thing I really have an issue with. Other than that, I'm pretty happy with the overall mechanics and the design of the legs and feet. So next up is the waist unit, which I think is looking really nice with the color separation as well as the detail with the panel lines and stuff. So we have big chunks of yellow and white on the front and on the back skirts. And of course, if you watched my unboxing video with the inner frame, you'll see that these are separate pieces for the white and the yellow. I don't know if it's supposed to add to the articulation or just to make it easier for the Sparrow and Titus suits to be made further down the line. It works pretty well. There's a little port there on the bottom of the yellow and a peg there on top of the white that plug into one another. And the same is true for the back skirts. And the yellows are free to move around as well on its own separate hinge joint on both sides. So when they're not together, they are a little floppy, especially on the back skirts. It's not very stiff back here on the white joint. Other features, the beam saber handles plug into the side skirts here on a small hinge joint. And underneath the armor, the hip joints are able to swivel back and forth to allow for different heights of the legs. So if you need that for posing, that's pretty cool. Pretty stiff joint, so there's no looseness there. It should stay in place pretty well. And of course, the inner frame underneath the white armor is looking good too, with the extra framework detail molded there. So all in all, the waist unit is pretty nice. And there's also a little flip-down hatch here for the Dods Rifle to plug into. The torso unit's looking really good too. A lot of color separation, as well as the clear green and silver on the chest there to highlight the AGE symbol. And there's also a lot of articulation. In the waist, you get some side-to-side movement, some ab crunch forward and backward. And if you watch this little blue piece here, you see it moves separately from the rest of the blue armor. So that's pretty cool. The shoulders are also pretty complex. You can pull them away from the upper torso, and you can see that there's a little hinge joint going on the side there. So it's two pieces, this piece, and then a polycap piece underneath there that hooks up to the waist armor. So that provides a lot of good articulation there for the shoulders when needed. The cockpit hatch is pretty unique as well. You can flip down the AGE symbol and pull it out to reveal the cockpit below. And as I said before, it reminds me a lot of the Turn A Gundam's chest unit, with the missiles or the cow storage there on the chest. This is kind of a difficult build, especially with this little piece right here, a little monitor assembly. So it's kind of tricky to get everything lined up and put into place. You have to deal with the blue piece here, the yellow, and that gray stuff inside there. So it's a little tricky to get everything working there right. But once you do, it's worth the extra effort. And some people are also disappointed that the AGE symbol doesn't light up like it does on the mega size model. But there's a lot of stuff going on inside here, and it would be hard to get the LED working as well. I think they'd either have to get rid of the cockpit or get rid of the LED. So I guess they chose to get rid of the LED. I don't think it's too big of a deal. Still looks really nice in my opinion. And the silver behind helps it light up quite a bit too. So I'm pretty happy with it. And on the back we see the port for the backpack to plug into. And that's pretty much it. The shoulders and arms are separate here. The shoulders are pretty simple. 2 white pieces wrapping around some inner frame. But there's a break in the white so you can see the inner frame poking through there. So that's looking pretty nice. And there's also a little hinge flap here on the outside that plugs into the shoulder joint of the arms. So nothing too fancy. It looks pretty good. And some decent detail molded on the underside there. For the arms, we have another polycap joint here for the shoulder. You get a complete 180 bend there at the double jointed elbow. Also, there's a break in the lower arm for the lower arm to swivel around. This is where the Dods Rifle plugs into on one arm and the shield plugs into on the other arm. So that way you get a good articulation there and posing opportunities with those items. And you also see the nice grills etched in here on either side. And the cuffs of the arms are at an angle. I think that's pretty cool. A unique setup there. As well as the little spike coming off the elbow here. So the arms are really nice. Again, I'm a little worried about the polycap ball joint there for the connection point for the shoulders. Otherwise, you get some good articulation and some nice detail though. So next up is the head unit, which is looking really nice. All the color separations here with the inner frame poking through the ears here, as well as the grill marks on the mouth armor. You can see the gray on the sides there. I did use the stickers here for the forehead as opposed to painting in the black above the clear green. I don't trust myself to make that look good, so I use the stickers. And the green for the eyes as well, and of course the red for the goatee. There's also a camera sticker on the back, and of course a lot of nice panel lining all over to help bring out the detail. So the neck joint's pretty unique in this kit. You got the backward and forward swivel at the lower arm there, and inside the head it kind of rocks around too. So plenty of posing opportunities there for the head. And I like the overall design of the header. It looks really accurate to the anime, and even reminiscent of the original RX-78-2, of course. So very nicely designed. A lot of good detail. And it's very hard to find a panel line anywhere, except for maybe right there where these two pieces come together. So very nice. So next up is the very unique backpack with the spoilers, the 3 thrusters here in a triangle formation, as well as another thruster there in the center. So everything's looking really nice. A lot of detail with the inner frame poking through. See a lot of panel lines there on the gray, as well as on the blue plastic. It has a nice profile. And then when it plugs into the AGE-1 on the opposite side, you can see even more detail there. I would just be careful with the spoiler. First off, the plastic is really thin, and I was able to break mine pretty easily. I don't know how actually. I guess I dropped something on it from the stress marks. You can see here the white, so I guess something dropped on and popped off. But this popped off in 3 pieces: the large chunk, the small chunk, and the main chunk. I was able to get the large one on here again with some thin cement, but the little piece right here blast off into the ether, so I don't know where that's at. So it doesn't look too bad, I guess. Pretty quick fix. The thin cement was able to hold pretty well. So just be careful with yours. Make sure to keep it out and away when you're building it, so you don't drop anything on it. Actually, I didn't see this happen. I just came home one afternoon to find this in pieces, so that was a little frustrating. But overall, the construction of the backpack is pretty simple. Just a couple chunks of blue plastic plugged into the gray. But I think the result's looking really nice, and it's very secure on the backpack, and there's no weight issues, and it attaches really well. So all in all, a very good backpack. Alright, so the hands are following the recent trend of having modular fingers that plug into 2 separate palms. We have 4 complete sets of fingers, open, beam saber handle, trigger finger, and closed fist there. And the palm units are pretty unique. Each thumb is articulate here in the middle, so it can bend like a normal thumb, as well as swivel around as the normal thumbs on PatrickGrade kits do. So it's pretty cool to see a little articulation there in the fingers. And the wrist joints are pretty unique. They can swivel around independently of the wrist and the hand, as well as move side to side like that. So some pretty unique construction here. And the whole hand is pretty long, but it plugs deep into the arm unit, so it won't look that weird when it's plugged inside. For the trigger finger, we can see the peg there in the center to plug in the weapon into for the Dods Rifle. And the beam saber version just has some pinching points there in the center to help grasp the beam saber handle. So all in all, this method is working pretty well, I think. It helps hold onto the weapons pretty well, as opposed to the normal PatrickGrade hands with the peg in the center and the movable fingers. So while I miss the articulation of the fingers, I think this is a much more secure method of holding onto the weapons. Alright, so next up are the beam saber handles and blades. And they're pretty simple as far as the construction. Just 2 pieces plugging into one another for the handles. And not much detail there either. And the blades are looking cool, more like a sword edge than a lightsaber blade. The hands hold onto them really well. They're at an angle thanks to the shape of the hands. And they're very secure inside there, so they're not going to fall out anytime soon. So overall, I'm really happy on how the hands hold onto the handles. Alright, so next up is the Dods Rifle, which is a pretty nice beam weapon. It's got a couple different forms. First of all, you can break it in half to have just a little gun here, I suppose, or put on the rifle barrel to have a full weapon. And the front can swivel around here to either side. It's got sights on both the sides, so you can line it up like this, and that way he can hold on to the separate handle here. Or you can flip it down like this to have a more natural looking rifle. So another unique feature of the Dods Rifle is the handle. It has a couple points of articulation. You can see it swivels in and out like that, and a little bit around side to side. This point here attaches to the back of the forearm and plugs in very securely. And this allows it to kind of form to what position that rifle is in, so it's not so stiff, and allows for a little bit better posing. And even without the hand, just having the peg plugged into place in the back of the forearm, you get a very secure connection there. And with everything plugged in place, you get extremely secure connection, and it looks really good in hand too. So you can see it moves around thanks to the swivel point there on the attachment point in the forearm. It can swivel back and forth and still stay in the peg, and it can kind of move around too in the hand with the wrist going up and down. So a very good way to hold onto the weapon, with both the hands and the connection point there at the bottom. And last up is the shield with the upside down blue A there. Very large, looks really nice. A lot of lining all around on all the pieces, especially in the back here on the gray. So very nicely detailed. And you may notice that there's no handle at all to hold on to. It's just this little peg that plugs into the back of the forearm like the rifle. So I'm happy to see that there's no extra pieces there to get in the way. Looks really nice, and like the rifle, when plugged into place you get a super strong connection, able to go all over, kind of swivel back and forth if you need to. So a very good way to hold onto the shield, and the shield looks really nice by itself, so very good job on the shield. Alright, so once you get everything put together, I think you come up with a very nice looking reinterpretation of the original ARC-782 design. It shares, of course, the same color scheme and the same overall visual aesthetic as the RX-72, but just in a modern day fashion. So, of course, this is the first iteration of this Gundam suit in the universe of Gundam Age. So it's blocky, especially in the legs and the torso here. Everything's pretty squared off. Not a lot of contoured lines or anything, but I think that's all a part of the design aesthetic and the whole generational change between the Gundam Age 1, 2, and 3. So I think it's looking really nice. A very sturdy, solid kit. Nothing falls off. It stands on the ground very well. The feet and ankles support the weight of the kit. For articulation, The side skirts and front skirts get out of the way quite nicely to allow for some nice leg movement to the side and forward. And here's kind of the thing I was talking about with the polycap. You can see this one leg droops a little bit when it comes all the way out, and this other leg does not. And I think that also has to do with the strength of the polycap joint. So definitely I wish I would have changed that, but it's just not such a big deal, I guess. So you get good articulation, a good forward kick there, comes backwards nicely and bends backwards. You get a good bend there at the knee. So good articulation there, and the waist, you get plenty of side that you can turn it around 360 if you want it to, side to side crunch, as well as back and forward. And you can see the blue piece there that stays in place when you move the rest of the chest. The shoulders are free to move around 360. The shoulder armor just snaps into place over this polycap joint, and it seems to work pretty well. You can come out separately of the arm, so you get plenty of range of movement there. And then with the somewhat advanced shoulder joint, you can get a lot of crazy poses going on there if you need to. So that's all pretty good. And the head, of course, is able to move around 360, no problem. Forgot to add the backpack on. So with the backpack there too, no weight issues at all. The backpack is very light. Doesn't cause any kind of instability in the back. So here's an example of how well balanced this kit is. It's crouched all the way down as far as it can, and it's posed on the balls of its feet. So definitely a well balanced kit. You have a couple different options for a kneeling pose. You can keep him on his feet all the way, or tuck the other leg back like that. So some good kneeling options if you like those kind of poses. So the articulation of the kit's pretty top notch. And the only issues I really have when moving stuff around is the waist unit. Two things really. The skirts, the side skirts and front skirts can pop off kind of easily since they're on a separate joint there. And this piece, the cod piece here, also gets in the way and comes off. When you move the legs, both legs forward and stuff, it kind of pushes it off. So it's not too huge of a deal. It's just a little more fiddly than I usually like with the PatrickGrade. If you learn how to play with it, keep the sides pinched in like that when moving the skirts around, you can kind of deal with that issue. Alright, so here's a look at the kit with the beam sabers in hand. And stealing a pose out of the Sparrow's handbook, I got the small beam saber blade there reversed in the hand. And I'm very happy with the way the hands are working. Bandai's making some good steps forward and making the hands work really well in multiple situations. Having the swappable fingers is a good idea. It helps with the stability and the functionality of the kit. So definitely a good job on these modular hands. And as you can see, the beam saber handles are pretty plain. Just little rectangles of plastic there. So the weight of the gun and the strength of the attachment points in both the fingers and the forearm there proved to make it really posable. It holds in place just fine in the hands. Like I showed you before, it's able to move around with the wrist thanks to a unique attachment point here with the swivel and all that kind of cool stuff. So a very effective way to hold the weapon. And the weapon does look good in hand as well. It's cool to have the two sights there that can switch sides to allow for some unique posing, and you get some good poses with the articulation and the head and stuff. You can have them look right down the barrel. So very good overall with the weapons in hand. And thanks to the well articulated shoulders, you can pull off a pretty convincing across the chest double-handed pose there on the rifle. Looks pretty good. You can see how much the shoulders have to move around to make that happen. So it's nice to see that kind of articulation in the shoulders there for a kit that's on the cheaper side. And here it is with the shield plugged into the forearm. Of course, the forearm can swivel independently of the rest of the arm. So you can have it in the back or the side. The shield can rotate on its axis there and doesn't get in the way. It's very light and looks pretty nice on the forearm like that too. So very, very cool overall. I think the weapons complement the kit very well. They're simple, understated, and just goes well with the overall design of the kits. So if you wanted to get the kit up in the air on an action stand, you can use the included attachment point here, plug it into your action stand, and then it clips over the back of the torso unit there. And that way you have a pretty solid connection. As long as you don't tilt the kit too far forward, it won't pop out of place on the peg. But you still can rotate the arm forward to get some dashing kind of movements there. And while up on the action stand, it's not too difficult to pull off the pose there on the side of the box. Get a pretty good reproduction of that shot. And the kit does look nice. It's a very good reimagining of the original RX-72 design. And while it's more modern than the RX-72, it's definitely older looking in the universe. But I think it's a good trade-off and a good combination of the design aesthetics from the two different universes. So definitely an attractive kit in my opinion. But of course, if you don't like the traditional Gundam design, it might be a little plain in for your tastes when compared to like the Dual Gundam or the Unicorn or the 00 Gundam. But I think the quality of the kit and the overall engineering behind it really makes up for the simple traditional design. And here he is compared to the high-grade version of the AGE-1 normal. Definitely a lot more detailed on the legs and panel lining. So definitely a step up in the overall implementation of the AGE-1 normal's design. It fits in much better with the other Master Grade kits, I think. So here's a quick look at the AGE-1 normal next to the original Grand 80 Gundam. And it's always cool to go back and see the inspirations that this original design has had on current mobile suit design. It's always good to know where you come from, so that's cool to see. So as Flit SNO and his Gundam AGE-1 normal spins around there, let's talk about a few of the good things and bad things of this kit. So I discovered while posing the kit that the extra articulation definitely comes with some drawbacks, namely a couple things that fall off pretty often. The spoiler here in the back comes off real easy from the backpack, and I assume that's to help it not break, so there's no stress put in the plastic. So it slides off real easy, which is good because it doesn't break, but it's also pretty annoying when you're trying to post stuff and it just kind of falls off when you put your finger back there. Also with the waist, the front and back skirts are nice. Having the separate pieces there is definitely pretty unique, but it also provides a problem with them coming apart when you don't want it to, and it's a little difficult to get them plugged back into place, so it can be frustrating if you're trying to pose and you get it perfect, but the back or the front skirt comes apart and you have to worry about getting it back in place without ruining the rest of your pose. And it's also a little frustrating with the front and side skirts can pop off on their separate part there and come away from the whole waist armor, but again, once you learn how to work with it, it's not so bad. But aside from the skirts on the waist armor and the spoiler, everything else stays in place pretty well. Sometimes the shoulders can be a pain, but it's not too big of a deal. A couple of those minor issues coupled with the polycap joints for the hips and the shoulders is somewhat frustrating. But those are all minor issues, and it's more mainly because of my fumbling hands than anything. So aside from those few negative points, I think the kit is an overwhelming success. It takes the somewhat simple design of the Gundam AGE-1 normal and really makes it more complex. Sort of like the RX-72 in the 1 Year War version. There's a lot of extra detail in this kit when compared to the high-grade version of the Gundam AGE-1 normal. So while the overall design is pretty simple, I think it works really well. Seeing how this is the first iteration of the mobile suit. So definitely it's a good generational starting point. The legs work really well. The ankles are quite strong, and even though they can move around quite a bit, they provide a lot of support for the feet and legs. The knees are super strong. You can get some nice kneeling poses and stuff out of it. They're very functional. The chest unit is really nice as well. A lot of good articulation. The ab crunch is nice, and having the separate blue piece that is separate from the rest of the blue is pretty cool. The way the cockpit hatch works is nice. Being able to have Flit stand on the outside like that and the whole thing pull away from the chest is pretty cool. Although I can see how not having the LED light in the chest is kind of frustrating. So I definitely recommend this kit to anybody who's looking for a new Master Grade and who can appreciate the old school design of the Gundam AGE-1 normal. There are a few drawbacks, with the stickers on the knees, the lack of a light up chest, but I think those are all kind of minor issues. You can definitely get around them without too much trouble. I think the overall quality of the kit really makes up for any kind of lacking features like that. It's a cheaper kit, under $50 I believe, at GGinfinite.com. So definitely won't break your bank. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how well the Titus and the Sparrow come out. If the Gundam AGE-1 normal is any indication, I think they'll both be great kits. And having them priced nicely, like under $50, will make it easy for you to get at least one or two of them, if not all three. So in closing, I definitely think this kit's worth picking up. It's worthy of your money and your shelf space. And it'll look nice next to some of the other lead suits. So thanks a lot for watching. I really appreciate your time. Let me know what you think with a comment down below. I'll like if you do. And please subscribe to my channel so you can be sure to see all the other videos I have coming up. I'm going to get some high-grade Gundam seed kits reviewed here soon, as well as the Master Grade Delta Plus that I have laying around that I haven't built yet. So stay tuned for a lot more videos. Thank you to Gundam Guy for providing the kits, and thanks to all your viewers out there, and I will see you soon.